Look at these flowers, aren't they beautiful? Welcome to peaceful Taiju village. Rusty and Frorum will be showing us around the village today. The spiders are here to welcome us. The fields here are so vast, it's hard to name them all. There's also Cinna, a shy fox girl showing off her tomato garden. The rice fields are starting to turn golden. Besides farming, the residents have their own specialties, like the dwarves who brew sake and the elves who are crafting experts. The village is getting livelier with children playing ball. Meanwhile, in the main building, Luutier and Ria are discussing preparations for the new residents moving in. After Flora gives the signal, Haraku finally appears. He's the friendly village mayor, ready to welcome anyone who wants to stop by. Initially, Haraku just wanted a peaceful life as a farmer. Thanks to God's help, his dream came true in this world, complete with a magical farming tool. Here, he met many unique friends, from monsters to beautiful girls. They worked together to build Taiju village from scratch until it became the prosperous village it is today. The population has already exceeded 100. That's why Haraku decided to establish another village, ensuring there's enough housing for all the new residents. Everyone is busy preparing, from cutting down trees with the lizardmen to stocking up on food. Anne is also busy cooking long-lasting meals for the move. While taking a break, Haraku tastes a new dish made by Anne, filled with fresh vegetables. It's perfect for boosting the energy of the hard-working residents. But as it turns out, the paperwork for the relocation is overwhelming. The office staff are slumped on the floor because the pile of documents has become far too much. Rusty tried to help with the calculations in her own way, but she caused chaos instead. The documents ended up scorched, filling the room with panic and black smoke. Fortunately, Forum reacted quickly and brought reinforcements from the Demon Kingdom. Now, a professional team will handle the work so all village affairs can be settled quickly. The bureaucrat girls, the Demon Kingdom's new administrative team, get straight to work clearing the massive backlog of village documents. To keep their stress down while working, they were even allowed to relax and pet Zabuton and Korono as much as they wanted. After finishing the office work, Lulutier invited Haraku to check out a potential site for a new village downstream. The site wasn't chosen at random. They had to consider defense in case of any future chaos or rebellion. Unfortunately, the trees there were as hard as iron, making ordinary axes useless, so Haraku stepped in with his divine tool. Using the axe from his all-purpose farming tool, Haraku cuts down giant trees with a single swing while shouting out food names. They built a wooden bridge but intentionally made it narrow so that large monsters wouldn't be able to cross easily. Along with the roads, Haraku built a waterway from upstream to ensure a steady water supply for the new village. While taking a break, Haraku was carving a wooden statue of Zabuton when Lulutier approached him with baby Alfred. House construction went quickly since the materials were ready, and the elves helped assemble everything with their magic. Even after a piece of flying wood nearly hit Daga, Haraku reminded everyone to always prioritize safety while working. Suddenly, Drame arrived with a group of potential new residents, the Minotaurs, who are known for their massive size. It turns out they were driven out of their original village and needed a new home, as their children were already starving. Seeing their condition, Haraku didn't want to waste time talking and immediately asked the servants to prepare some food, and immediately started preparing food for the 72 Minotaurs who had just arrived. They all ate heartily, enjoying the porridge they were served. Haraku wasn't sure if they had any dietary restrictions or specific customs. Luckily, Narf offered to help with communications since she had lived with Minotaurs before. Nerf chatted casually with them to find out exactly what they needed. Meanwhile, Haraku was relieved that housing for the newcomers was already prepared. However, a new housing problem soon came up. Haraku realized the wooden houses they built were much too small for the large Minotaurs. This caused the Grand Hall and the guest house to become overcrowded. Haraku had to find a solution quickly before the next group of immigrants arrived. Before that issue was even resolved, Flora arrived with news that her father was bringing even more immigrants. Beazle looked completely exhausted from using teleportation magic so often. Beazle explained that the war had forced many people to flee as refugees. Flora tried to comfort her father, telling him not to push himself too hard. The new group that arrived consisted of centaurs. Their leader, Gruwald, took a firm stance and demanded they be treated with proper respect. Haraku wasn't familiar with the noble etiquette of the Demon Kingdom, so he felt awkward dealing with Gruwald's attitude. Eventually, Rashashi stepped in to handle the stubborn centaur leader. Rashashi offered to help because her family had connections to Gruwald's group. She gave a stern warning, reminding the centaurs to mind their manners since they had come seeking help. Gruwald immediately lost his confidence and apologized once he realized Rashashi was from the noble Droa family. Haraku was relieved that Rashashi was handling the centaur situation. Haraku was worried about Rashashi's family because of the war in the outer regions. However, Rashashi reassured him that her family and their territory were still safe for now. Once again, body size became an issue when the centaurs saw the wooden houses in the village. Gruwald tried to shrink his size using magic, but it still didn't work very well. With a total of 104 centaurs arriving, the village was getting crowded. Hiraku considered putting them in the southern dungeon with the Lamias for the time being. A bit later, another group arrived, a group of dryad girls. The Lamias had found them wandering through the forest, which was actually quite a dangerous area. Hiraku tried to greet the dryads who were very quiet. It turned out they were carrying a strange tree stump that they kept hugging. And suddenly, the stump spoke up to introduce itself. It turns out they're dryads, a type of tree spirit that can merge with plants to hide from monster attacks. Igu had to turn into a tree stump so she could be carried easily, since she has trouble returning to human form when she's injured. They fled here after their village was destroyed by a flood, which was caused by humans cutting down too many trees. When offered food, they refused and said they only need water, sunlight, and good soil, as they live just like plants. Hiraku led them to the fields, and they really loved the quality of the soil, which even had a fragrant scent. Interestingly, they actually turned down the offer of a house because they prefer sleeping outdoors to get direct sunlight. As night fell, Hiraku began arranging temporary housing for the Minotaur and Centaur refugees who had just arrived. The problem was that Hiraku had to quickly build hundreds of new houses because the village population had grown so much so suddenly. Meanwhile, Flora explained to Hakuran that Hiraku is the leader here and someone all the villagers deeply respect. Hakuran finally bowed and apologized to Hiraku for her rude behavior when she first arrived in the village. Hiraku mentions that Great Tree Village has now welcomed many newcomers from various different races. There are the massive Minotaurs, the Centaurs, and even the new Daphne, who look like tree spirits. With around 200 people in total, Hiraku gathers representatives from each race to discuss their living arrangements. Surprisingly, Gruwald from the Centaur race is so humble that she prostrates herself, even though Hiraku only wanted to ask for their help. To make the atmosphere more authoritative, Flora gives Hiraku cue cards so he can act more like a firm leader. Gruwald looks delighted when Hiraku offers some encouragement, while Flora stays in the background holding up a praise board for him. To manage each race, Hiraku appoints Narf for the Minotaurs and Rashashi for the Centaurs, while the new Daphne will be overseen by Meimu is a newcomer from Howland Village who was recommended by Senna because she is eager to work and take on responsibility. Housing is also a major concern, as standard human-sized houses wouldn't be big enough for their unique physical sizes. Ultimately, they decide to build separate villages, and Hiraku asks Lulu Tulu and Lasty Moon to help clear a path through the forest. But being dragons, instead of taking it slow, they try to burn the forest down, causing a panicked Hiraku to forbid them from using any fire. Lulu Tulu and Lasty's Moon end up competing in a test of strength to clear the path, forcing Hiraku to calm them down so the forest isn't destroyed. The project continues along the river with the help of the Minotaur workers, who are incredibly fast at building the road infrastructure. Meanwhile, Anne brings baby clothes made by Zabaton for Alfred, even though they still look a bit too large for him. Construction of the second village specifically for the Minotaurs begins, featuring single-story houses with very high ceilings. Due to their giant stature, Hiraku adjusts the size of the tables and chairs so they can live comfortably. The furniture is so massive that Hiraku feels like a small child while sitting with the Minotaur couple living there. The beds also have a unique design with holes in the headboard, ensuring the Minotaur's horns don't get stuck while they sleep. Construction then continues on the third village for the Centaurs. Their houses are designed to look like stables to make them feel more at home. Since the Centaurs find it difficult to slide heavy wooden doors, they prefer using fabric curtains that can be opened and closed by pulling a rope. The large wooden doors are only closed during heavy rain to ensure there is always good air circulation inside their homes. Meanwhile, on the balcony, Anne takes over carrying baby Alfred from Hakuran to try and soothe him while he's being fussy. Anne manages to make the baby laugh with a game of peekaboo, but she refuses to reveal her secret when a curious Lou asks about it. A month passes, and everyone's hard work finally pays off as rows of neat wooden houses now stand in each of the new villages. Hiraku and the girls gather to determine the distance between the villages. They are relieved that all the settlements are finished before winter arrives. To keep things simple and avoid confusion, Hiraku names the locations Village 1, Village 2, and Village 3. Lou requests that those names remain unchanged, as it would be a major hassle to rewrite all the existing documents. Flora suggests that Gordon and Gruwald become village chiefs, while Hiraku is unsure what title he should use to avoid sounding arrogant. A cool-sounding title, like Chief of Village Chiefs, was briefly considered, but Hiraku immediately rejects it, feeling it is far too excessive. The new Daphne group is initially sad to learn Hiraku hasn't built a specific village for them, leaving Igu's wooden face looking quite dejected. Hiraku consoles them and offers them roles as guardians and messengers at key points between the villages. The new Daphne's telepathic abilities are very useful for long-distance communication, allowing the territory to be constantly monitored. In addition to guarding the empty village one, they will also provide beautiful blue light along the forest paths at night. However, the division of labor isn't always smooth, as some residents even faint in terror upon seeing Kuro and Daga reports that the minotaurs and centaurs are struggling to hunt because the forest's fanged rabbits are surprisingly agile and dangerous. It turns out most of them are refugees only used to basic survival, making routine hunting a significant challenge for them. Haraku realizes that the strength of Kuro and his pack is truly extraordinary, so he decides the villagers should focus solely on defense. The new Daphne also possess impressive combat strength, but the task of hunting remains fully entrusted to Kuro's wolf pack. In exchange, Haraku begins opening farmland in each village so the residents can have their own food supplies without needing to hunt. Unfortunately, the planted seeds fail to grow, and they soon realize that no one knows the proper time to plant them. Haraku explains that the secret to his farming success is the almighty farming tool granted by God. This tool allows him to till the soil, plant any seed he imagines, and significantly speed up the harvest regardless of the season or weather. Since he is the only person who can use the magical tool, Haraku decides the villagers should learn how to farm manually. As the fields have grown quite large, he wants them to work together so they aren't entirely dependent on his power. Manual farming proves to be quite difficult, but luckily, Gordon has some prior experience. He suggests spreading straw over the soil to keep the seeds warm, as winter is fast approaching and the wheat needs protection to sprout. Impressed by his knowledge, Haraku and the fox girl begin calling Gordon their senior. Together with the children, they start planting wheat, though they realize it will take half a year to harvest, a much longer process than they are used to. While waiting for the wheat to grow, Haraku reflects on the incredible power of God's gift. To show his gratitude, he uses his tools to carve statues of the creator god and the farming god to be placed inside a small, handmade shrine. The villagers are amazed by the craftsmanship of the statues, even if the depictions of the gods seem a bit unusual to them. While the minotaurs focus on their duties in the fields, the centaurs begin looking for their own way to contribute to the village's progress. Leveraging their natural speed, the centaurs establish a courier service between the villages. This role suits them perfectly as they can outrun forest monsters, though they occasionally get overexcited and end up flipping their delivery carts. One day, a lizard man and a centaur girl approach Haraku to discuss a new matter. They have noticed a horse in the village's pasture and want to talk to him about his plans for the animal. Along with the other livestock sent by the merchant Michael, a black horse has arrived at the village. Haraku has always dreamed of horseback riding and tries to befriend the animal with fresh carrots, but the horse completely ignores his efforts. Haraku asks the centaur girl to help him communicate with the horse, but she admits that she cannot understand animal speech. However, she agrees to assist him, and Haraku finally finds the courage to climb onto the horse's back to see the view. Haraku is impressed by the height and the view from atop the horse. As they begin to move, the centaur girl runs alongside them for safety, but the black horse seems to grow competitive against her speed as they race through the forest. A few days later, the black horse suddenly lies down in front of Haraku, signaling that it is finally ready to carry him. As Haraku enjoys his ride, the centaur girl watches from behind a door, looking concerned that her own role might be threatened. This leads to a rivalry, where both the centaur girl and the black horse compete to offer Haraku a ride every morning. The girl even goes as far as to warn Haraku that riding an untrustworthy animal is dangerous, hoping he will choose her instead. Haraku does his best to calm them both down and encourages them to get along. To maintain peace in the village, they eventually reach an agreement to take turns carrying him on his daily rounds. That morning, the village was peaceful. Some residents were praying in front of a tree stump while enjoying the clear weather under a large, lush tree. Haraku saw Gordon busy teaching the centaur girls how to farm. Gordon explained that since plant roots grow quite long, the soil needs to be tilled deep. While taking a walk with Tia, who was carrying the baby, Haraku felt relieved that the new residents were adapting well, despite his initial concerns about their numbers. Haraku wanted every village to eventually become self-sufficient. He was a bit worried they would always rely on his farming tools, especially if he were to fall ill one day. Tia tried to reassure him, saying he didn't need to worry about the future right now. Hearing that, Haraku felt more at ease and started playing with the baby. But in the middle of their laughter, a bad smell wafted through the air because the little one had a dirty diaper. While looking at the scenery, Haraku remembered an important issue regarding the village's future. The problem was that female residents in the Great Tree Village far outnumbered the males. Haraku was unsure how to find more male residents so the village population could remain balanced. Haraku tried discussing this with Gordon. However, Gordon explained that minotaurs usually only marry within their own kind because of their large size. Haraku didn't give up and asked the centaur girls instead. It turned out that most males in their race were still children because the adults had all gone off to war. When Hiraku asked about interspecies marriage, one of the centaur girls misunderstood him. With a flushed face, she immediately shouted that she was still single. The situation became even more awkward when she offered to marry Hiraku. She thought it was a condition for her race to be allowed to stay there. A panicked Hiraku immediately tried to calm her down. He emphasized that he wasn't asking for any strange conditions like that, just for the sake of residency.
It's been a few winters since they first settled in this forest. With the snow piling up super thick, all farming activities are put on hold for a while. Hiraku and Ryu are totally enjoying their chill time inside the wooden cabin, munching on some warm cheese bread from the stash they prepared earlier. Since the village population has grown a lot this year, Hiraku was actually a bit worried if their food supply would be enough to last them through the winter. However, Dogger reports that their food consumption is surprisingly way lower than expected, not even a third of what it should be. It turns out their lifestyle is incredibly frugal. They've just been drinking hot water and eating a tiny bit of dried meat every day to make the supplies last longer. Dogger feels that holding back this much isn't good, especially since they've already been told there's absolutely no need to ration their food so strictly here. So, Hiraku suggests they help finish off the perishable ingredients like veggies and meat before they go bad and end up completely wasted. Flora, Dogger, and Mamu agree to pass the message along right away. Mamu then gets ready to check out the remaining stock in their storage warehouse. When asked about the True Race girls, Mamu suddenly shouts that everything is fine, even though she looks super stressed and pressured. As it turns out, those True Race girls don't even need to eat because they literally turn into trees during the winter. Mamu's only job is to dig them out of the snowdrifts. Poor Mamu feels sad because she has no one to take care of. Hiraku tries to comfort her, telling her that just having her around is enough to put everyone at ease. Dogger then brings up a special request from the Horned residents regarding the True Race girls who often wander around outside. The request is simple. The new Daphnes need to wear clothes at all times. Apparently, they keep forgetting to dress up when they transform back into their human forms. Moving on to winter food prep, Hiraku and open up a bamboo steamer filled with perfectly cooked, warm white rice. Ria and Ryu show up after catching that delicious rice aroma. They totally think Hiraku is making a massive batch of onigiri. Flora has her own theory, guessing that this is prep work for some brand new fermentation experiment Hiraku is trying out. Surprise, Hiraku actually wants to make mochi. He's already prepared a wooden mortar and pestle to pound the special glutinous rice they just harvested. This specific rice is tailor-made for mochi. Ryu and Ria are super curious since the whole preparation process looks pretty unique to them. Hiraku explains the process to and before they team up, they get ready to pound the rice outside in the snowy weather. Hiraku starts swinging the mallet with all his might, while and skillfully flips the mochi dough right between each strike. Ryu watches the whole thing intently. Hiraku totally admits that pounding mochi is surprisingly exhausting and wears him out pretty fast. The girls eagerly want to try pounding the mochi themselves. Hiraku gives them the green light, but warns them to take it slow and be careful. One of the horned elf girls gives it a shot, but her sheer physical strength creates literal shockwaves all around them when she hits the dough. Flora uses her magic to summon a bunch of wooden mallets. Rio gets instantly hyped and starts taking turns pounding the mochi dough with the other villagers. Mama takes charge of kneading the dough, but suddenly a bright blue light flashes, and the mochi magically turns into green crystal gems. They decide to try again, this time with way more focus. Dogger and jump in to help pound it, though Anne accidentally ends up breaking her wooden mallet in the process. Flora almost tries to help by using some sketchy pink explosive liquid, but she gets stopped immediately. After a pretty long struggle, the mochi is finally ready. They serve the mochi in a variety of flavors, ranging from sweet soy sauce and kinako powder to zunder, which is made from a smooth edamame paste. Flora and the Horned Elf girls absolutely love the mochi, completely hooked on its chewy texture and what they consider a very unique taste. There's also some warm red bean soup, but when Flora takes a sip, it's still so burning hot that she ends up screaming. A Horned Elf girl offers Hiroko a fresh-smelling leaf-wrapped mochi. She claims it tastes way better than the ones made with mugwort. It turns out that gathering those leaves was quite the dangerous adventure since the plants actually fight back. Ria and Mama both agree that rice-based dishes are truly one of a kind. Suddenly, Donovan shows up carrying a special drink that pairs perfectly with mochi, doboroku, an unrefined sake brewed right from their rice. The moment they hear its sake, the girls are super eager for a taste. Flora thinks the flavor is incredibly robust and refreshing. Ever since that day, mochi pounding has become the hottest trend in the village. Gordon the Minotaur turns out to be the absolute best at it because his striking technique is just flawless. Meanwhile, over on another side of the story, a knight in white armor named Glatz suddenly drops to one knee right in front of Renana to propose to her. Renana is super confused because she doesn't even know the guy. Glatz takes off his helmet and introduces himself as the head of a noble family from the Goggle Demon Kingdom. Beazle explains to Hiroko that Glatz fell in love at first sight during a previous visit to Big Tree Village. It turns out Glatz is actually one of the four heavenly kings. He originally came over out of pure curiosity about the important relationship between the village and the Demon Kingdom. Glatz marches straight up to Hiroko to ask about the conditions for marrying Renana. He insists he needs official permission from the village chief before she can even answer his proposal. Hiroko is totally bewildered, wondering if this is just how proposals work in this world. The girls then start spinning these overly dramatic fairy tales about star-crossed lovers from different social classes. Their stories get more and more ridiculous, even painting Hiroko as some evil villain chasing after them. Hiroko can only respond to their wild explanations with a totally blank, confused stare. Hiroko finally says he'll give them his blessing, but only if it's truly what Renana wants: no coercion, no violence, and absolutely no abuse of power. Renana agrees to think it over first. The two of them then take a shy, adorable stroll together along the river bank. Hiroko and Beazle can only cross their fingers and hope everything goes smoothly for the couple. Glatz, meanwhile, starts sending letters non-stop because he just can't wait to see Renana again. Desperate to stay by his girl's side, Glatz recklessly tries to resign from his position as a general right in front of Beazle. Rondon, who just arrived on the scene, immediately scolds Glatz for being so irresponsible. In his defense, Glatz was planning to just dump his duties onto his younger brother. Their argument drags on so long that Rondon eventually threatens to quit too, throwing the whole castle into total chaotic uproar. Shifting back to Hiroko's place, on this chilly morning, they're having a cozy breakfast of warm rice, soup, and some homemade pickles prepared by the girls. Out of nowhere, Hiroko mentions that he really wants to eat nori, but the request leaves and Ria completely puzzled. It turns out Ria, Mamo, and Flora have never even heard the term before and assume nori must be some kind of legendary item. Aryu even asks how strong this nori is, prompting Hiroko to quickly clarify that it's literally just seaweed used for wrapping food. Hiroko suddenly remembers a TV show from his past life talking about harvesting seaweed in the winter, so he plans to ask a merchant about it. A few days later, Michael braves the snowy weather to drop off the raw materials Hiroko ordered. Michael brings over 1 full barrel of wet seaweed, though he's honestly pretty skeptical since people around here aren't exactly used to eating ocean plants. Hiroku himself isn't entirely sure how to process it, but he's still dead set on trying to turn that raw seaweed into proper nori sheets. The process kicks off with him mincing the seaweed until it's super fine, while Mamu and the horned elf girls watch his every move with deep curiosity. After mixing it with water and pouring it into a wooden mold, the girls actually think the batter looks just like forest moss. Hiroku explains that nori can indeed be called sea moss, and then he asks the horned elf girls and Mamu to help him start drying the sheets. To speed up the drying process, Hiroku enlists Tia and Ria to use their heat magic so the nori can be ready in no time. Michael and the gang are still totally baffled seeing the paper-thin results. They seriously doubt if this stuff is even edible. Hiroku starts lightly roasting the nori over hot coals to make it easier to digest and to ensure the girls don't end up with stomachaches later. Mamu absolutely loves the roasted aroma filling the air, and Hiroku quickly serves up some fresh rice balls wrapped beautifully in the nori. Hiroku basks in the nostalgic taste of his homemade onigiri, while Tia and Ryu look incredibly satisfied by how delicious it turns out to be. Ria and the horned elf girls are instantly hooked on the perfectly balanced salty flavor, especially since these onigiri are so convenient to just eat with your hands. Not stopping there, Hiroku also whips up some asobe mochi. Its fragrant aroma makes the horned elf girls and Mamu jump for joy. Michael instantly spots a golden business opportunity and offers to handle the nori supply chain, provided he can barter for some of that mochi goodness. Hiroku promises to discuss it with the villagers, pointing out that he needs to grow more glutinous rice before they can commit to any trades. Michael casually asks about the rumors of rice sake, but he gets immediately yelled at because the sake is strictly off-limits for trading. Later that night, Hiroku is back in the kitchen, totally fired up, and wearing a headband because he suddenly has a massive craving to make sushi. Hiroku starts mixing the rice with vinegar, sugar, and salt, while prepping other fillings like egg and mushrooms on the side. Since the folks in this world aren't really big fans of raw fish, Hiroku decides to make futomaki using a rolling mat crafted by the elves. After laying the fillings over the rice, Hiroku rolls the sushi up with the bamboo mat and slices it into several bite-sized pieces. Hiroku complains a bit about how hard it is to get perfectly round slices, but then steps up and manages to create these incredibly neat, square-shaped sushi rolls. Hiroku also tries his hand at making a mayo salad roll. Since they don't have imitation crab, he uses real crab meat, making it taste super luxurious. While cooking, Hiroku secretly munches on the ugly, failed sushi slices, making the excuse that he's just doing a taste test. However, in a cute chibi cutaway scene, and scolds Hiroku, telling him that snacking on the food without asking is actually pretty bad manners. Mamu and Ria dig in enthusiastically, even though the sour smell of the vinegar caught them off guard at first. Hiroku explains that vinegar actually kills bacteria, which instantly piques Flora's interest, leading to a deep dive into the food's fermentation process. Before they know it, winter is coming to an end, and Hiroku decides to follow the villagers' advice on the perfect time to kick off the farming season again. When discussing ideas for a festival, the girls pitch some wild, extreme concepts like setting off explosives or running away from wild stampeding cows. Hiroku tries to explain the kind of festivals he's used to, but his explanations leave the villagers scratching their heads in total confusion. It gets even worse when he talks about throwing tomatoes, chasing cheese down a hill, or running round carrying puddings they just don't get it at all. Realizing his ideas are way too bizarre for them, Hiroku switches gears and asks about their world's traditional New Year or harvest celebrations. But when they start talking about local traditions like Pyokyu and Mumu, the tables turn, and suddenly Hiroku is the one who's completely lost. The girls then start arguing over different versions of a folktale about raiding a rich person's house. Hiroku quickly realizes that getting them all on the same page is going to be incredibly tough. With the situation getting out of hand due to their clashing stories, Hiroku finally decides to just cut to the chase and find a middle ground. They write all the festival ideas down on a wooden board, and then Hiroku randomly picks one out through a lottery draw.
よーし、一発勝負でいくぞ。
As fate would have it, the winning idea is a martial arts tournament. The prospect of a battle of strength gets the whole village instantly fired up. Even though Hiroku originally thought it was going to be a dance festival, he just accepts his fate, silently hoping the event turns out to be as harmless as a school sports day.